Well, when I was in Tucson, I met my first wife, Annette, and she actually was going to the University of Arizona, which was about 10 miles away from Davis-Monthan Air Force Base where I was stationed. And what I would do is I would go ahead and work at Tom's store. I think New Comic Book Day, and I don't remember for sure anymore, but I think it was Fridays. And I would go ahead and go down, and as soon as I got off work at 4:30, I'd ride my bicycle down to his shop, and I would go ahead and get out all the new books. He would wait for me to get there to unpack them, and then we'd go ahead and pull the orders, just like I have standing orders here. He has standing orders there, and each person would get their stuff. And at the same time, as I was going pulling everybody's orders, the very best copies of all the books, I would go ahead and pull at least one copy for me. And then what I would also do is, if I was going to go ahead and get a second copy, because what would happen is that Tom would want me to go ahead and work in the store as much as possible, but he had no money, because comic book shops are known for having a lot of comic books but no money. And so what he would do is he would pay me in comic books. So what I would do is I would get that week's new books as payment, but he still owed me money. So I would go ahead and take an extra copy of the Amazing Spider-Man or Uncanny X-Men, and knowing that in the future I could probably use it as a trade. I didn't realize that people would actually pay like real money for these things, because while he had the store, I still didn't realize that this was an industry. I just thought it was like pretty wild that he had a store. So I got duplicates of a lot of different books during that time period. And what I would do is, with these duplicates, after I was there for a while, is I would set them aside and realize that I could actually not just trade them, but actually sell them. So I got orders to go overseas, and Annette and I were married by that time. So we went to RAF Mildenhall in England, which is about maybe 25 miles away from Cambridge University. Again, because I was going overseas, I was concerned about not being able to get my comic books. So what Tom would do is he would save books up for me. And then after he got a full box, which was probably like 200 books, I have no idea, he would actually just mail it to me with a little invoice inside saying how much I owed him, and I'd send him a check. Well, I was concerned because one time he was slow in getting me my books, and I was concerned. And I decided I'd go ahead and as a backup, I would go ahead and anything that was new coming out from that point on, I would start ordering from Mile High Comics, because they did APO shipments, and APOs are air post offices that are overseas. And that's what I was. I was at an APO in Mildenhall. So what I did is I still got them from Tom, but I also started getting them from Mile High Comics as a retail customer. A retail customer, though, if you bought so many, they would give you a discount, whereas Tom was giving me, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20% off because he liked me. But Mile High Comics would go ahead and give me anywhere from like 20 to 50% off. So I decided that maybe it was time to go ahead and switch over to Mile High Comics. Which when I look at it back at it now, it's kind of bad, because I should have supported Tom. But at the same time, Tom understood, because he said, "You're crazy not to do it." So anyway, what I did is I started getting a lot of books sent to me from Mile High Comics when I was overseas. And this was back during like 83 to 86, when all the good stuff was coming out, like Frank Miller's Daredevil, and also Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Crisis on Infinite Earths was soon to be coming out. It was a really cool time. So I remember that as being a big deal. I was in England until about 86, and when I got out of the service, I moved back to Tucson, Arizona, and I actually went to work for Tom. And so then I switched all my stuff back to him for the most part, because again, like I said, it wasn't fair not to give him support. But eventually I ended up going and sending out applications to different places in the comic book industry. I knew I couldn't draw, and I couldn't write, and I couldn't color, so I figured I could work in a distributorship. And so what I did is I sent out applications, and I eventually was hired by Mile High Comics in Denver, Colorado. And so about 6 months after we were out of the service, living in Tucson, we actually moved to Denver, Colorado for a little while. Well, we got into Denver. I actually had an interview with Chuck Rodzansky, who owns Mile High Comics, and what he was looking for at the time was somebody to actually work for his wife, who was the owner of Alternate Realities, a distributorship. Mile High Comics was completely separate from Alternate Realities, although it was in the same building. And she was the owner of Alternate Realities, and he was the owner of Mile High, and there was no things between the two of them at that point. So I got there. I got there probably maybe like in May, and I was named the trade stock manager. At the time, graphic novels were called trade stock. It was pretty much like graphic novels, and then all the sundries that go with it, like T-shirts and stuff like that. That was trade stock. But there wasn't really that much stuff in like 1986, 87. I think when it was 87 actually, and so I was put in charge of organizing all this stuff in the warehouse, huge warehouse, and And so I was there for about a month and a half. And while it was enjoyable, it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So we decided that we were going to go ahead and leave Denver, and either we could go back to Tucson, where her parents were, or we could come to Pennsylvania, where my parents were, just because you need to go ahead and go someplace where you have a roof over your head while you find a job. Well, I found out that if I came back to Pennsylvania, I'd get a job as a surveyor, and that's what I did when I was in the Air Force. So we moved back to Pennsylvania here, and we got back on July 3rd of 1987. We got an apartment here in Palmyra, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment. And what we did is 1 bedroom, the smallest one was for us, and the biggest one was for my comic books. Because by that time, I'm not sure exactly, but I probably had about 25,000 books, of which several thousand of them were duplicates that I had gotten by working for Tom. Because even when I worked for him after I got out of the military, he didn't pay me money, he just paid me in comic books. But I got a lot of cool stuff to sell. So what I started doing is selling my duplicates out of the bedroom. And then I would see people down at the Strawberry Patch buying comic books, and I'd wait till they walk outside the door, because it's not cool to approach somebody in somebody else's store. But I would say, hey, if you're looking for anything older, I might be able to help you out. And so that's how I actually got my first customer, Robert, who actually has been a volunteer here for over 20 years. He actually was my very first customer on a regular basis. And at the same time, I decided that I had all these books in my bedroom, but you know what? I wanted to go ahead and sell them to other people. So I actually ended up getting my very first flea market stand and actually selling stuff here in Pennsylvania outside my bedroom at Meadowview Antiques. And I did that every Sunday. And I realized that at the time that I was just selling my older books, but I realized I was still getting newer books in, and people were coming in and asking me for the newest issue of whatever. And I realized that because I was getting my stuff now, I was no longer getting it from Tom on a regular basis. I had gone back, because I had worked at Mile High, I started getting it from Mile High again. So what I would do is I would order 3 copies of Uncanny X-Men or Amazing Spider-Man or Batman, and I'd keep one for myself, and then the other 2 I'd actually just go ahead and put out for sale at Meadowview. And so actually I started getting customers that came in to do that. And so again, Robert, my first customer, and Grant, who's still with me, was my second customer. My third customer was probably Tom, who later, during that same period almost, opened up a comic book store down in Lebanon City. After seeing how I was doing it, he was faster at it than I was, as in actually getting a permanent standalone business, and he opened up the comic stop. That's been out of business for years now, but Tom actually did beat me to be in the first direct store in Lebanon County, but I'm still here. So.